I will pass a sheet of paper so that you can write who you are and where you're coming from. So I will circulate this. But maybe what is nice is that we also present each other quickly, where you're from, which country, which organization, and maybe why you're interested in this session. Shall we start with the table just here?
My name is Hassan, and I'm from Italy, originally from here, doing a PhD in the UK on transboundary water governance, and I'm really interested in water practices, and that's why I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Niccolo. I'm from Italy. I'm studying IWRM, Integrated Water Resource Management, here in Jordan. And I think everything as a student that I can bring with me as experience is good.
My name is Natalia, from the same master course from the Jordan University, Integrated Water Resources Management, and we are here for the same purpose to get more knowledge.
So you're from the German university?
Jordan University.
Oh, Jordan.
It's actually,
because there is also the German university in Jordan.
It is a project between the German University of ITT Cologne and the University of Jordan. National.
Yeah, I'm from the same. Jonathan is my name. Nice to meet you. I'm also from the same program, and I'm in particular interested in water governance. Victor, another student again. Same university.
Great.
Yeah, coming from Moldova, and yeah, that's related to our courses, so of course it's of interest to us.
I'm Willem, originally from Egypt, and I'm a water management scientist at ICARDA. And I'm interested in this session because, you know, we're developing kind of several packages for end user with farmers and water management, how to improve the water management. And scientifically, we documented through publications and scientific writing, but I'm interested here how to develop kind of a symbol for public audience.
Hello, my name is Edwin Rapp. I work for IMI in Cairo. I'm Dutch of origin, and I'm here to work with my friend Atif.
Welcome.
My name is Kisira Mohammed, Deputy Director of Irrigation Techniques from Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development from Algeria. I'm working in the field of irrigation development and the water scarcity, and I'm interested by this session for the good practice which are interesting in our region. Thank you.
Otherwise, you can use also the microphone on the table. You can.
Monsieur Faisal Amman, chef département de cartographie et préservation des sols à l'Institut national des sols d'irrigation et drainage, Algérie.
Bienvenue.
My name is Abdul Hafid Musa. I am from Libya. I am from University of Omar Mukhtar, Faculty of Agriculture and Environmental Science and Promote and Natural Resources.
My name is Abdelkarim Daoud from Libya. I work on Omar Mukhtar University under Frank. Another friend.
My name is Ali Ismail, Director of Soil Water and Environmental Research Institute, Agriculture Research Center, Egypt, Ministry of Agriculture, and I'm working in soil and water management. I'm working in the soil conservation, soil management in humid area and dry lands.
My name is Ahmad Youssef.
Maybe you can use this one because I see that it's not.
My name is Ahmad Youssef.
What's on?
My name is Ahmad Youssef.
No, it's okay.
Okay.
My name is Ahmad Youssef from Egypt. I am from Desert Research Center, the Ministry of Agriculture and Land Reclamation,
I am the head of water resources and land and the desert land division. I am working on the groundwater exploration, rainfed agriculture, and all things related to the remote sensing and the monitoring of the desertification.
I'm Silvana Gerges from Lebanon.
Go closer.
I'm an agricultural engineer in the Ministry of Agriculture and head of the Extension Center of Jubail.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Dani Basil, also from the Lebanese Ministry of Agriculture. We also work in the extension centers, and we are interested in sharing information between extension centers of the ministry and between extension centers and the farmers of each area. Thank you.
That's very good.
My name is John Passura, from agricultural scientist from Australia, and I'm here to take part in a panel discussion on Tuesday, and I'm sitting right here to sample the interests of all of you to see how we can make the panel session better.
Thank you very much. So, this morning I have presented the good practices, how we are working on them, and what I have been distributing now is the concept note that has been prepared. So what I've explained this morning is actually gathered in this document, giving the definition of what a good practice is, giving also the criteria, and as from page 3, it is also the process of experience capitalization. For some people, this is a strange name, because in English there is no real name to say experience capitalization. It's usually it's the word documentation that is being used, but documentation is only one part of the process. Capitalization means that you're building of the knowledge that has been acquired little by little. It's like the capital. The capital is the sum of all the different amounts that have been accumulated. So experience capitalization is the accumulation of the experiences, what you are gaining out of them, and what you have been learning out of them. And if you do this in a systematic way, then you gain more. That's the idea. So this is what is being explained, and also to take care of looking at who is capitalist, who is having the experience, and how to make sure that you're looking at all the different aspects, social aspects, men, women, young group, older group, listening and learning from each other. So in this session, I will focus more about the documentation. And for this, you have seen that I presented several products this morning. And if you're interested, for those who speak French, because at the moment the English version hasn't arrived yet, it will be probably 2 days later. These are, for example, examples of different products of the experience capitalization. So that can be distributed. And on page 9, you have what is called the template. The template for a good practice. So I thought it would be interesting to go through this. So you see in the template that you have elements that have to be filled in. And to give examples, we have them in French here at the moment, and the English one will be coming later. This is all due to the snow. We were stuck a little bit in having the right things at the right time. So if you take think I was telling you that we have been testing and validating this methodology of experience capitalization. And I was giving an example of inventory credit this morning. This is another example of agriculture input shops. So when you do your documentation, what is very important is that don't do this at the end of the project. Because at the end of the project or the initiative or the experience, it will be too late. Because what you want to document is also the changes and the learning. Therefore, you need to know what is the initial situation. So you have your baseline study. You have to know what is the situation and how this is going to evolve. So it's important to also think about, okay, with whom am I going to share the results, or with whom I'm going to share the achievements of our experience. And I was giving the example, we want to work with farmer organization. So let's see, with farmers organization, how do they communicate? What is the best way for them? So in some countries, you realize that farmers don't always are good at reading and writing, but they like either watching TV, if TV is reaching them, or they prefer to listen to radio. And therefore, you have to think that, okay, we can take notes, but it's maybe also important that we start interviewing people, and that what we will produce will be available also on audio modes. So that's why, as from the beginning, you have to think about who are going to be my various audiences. I can give you an example from Costa Rica. In Costa Rica, we were having a project that was about how farmers and researchers were exchanging communication and information better. And so they decided to have 3 pilot regions. And in these 3 regions of Costa Rica, they were actually doing something completely different. One region was really livestock. And discussing with the farmers and the research centers, they thought, okay, the best way we can actually communicate, exchange knowledge is to use video. And they realized that among the community, there was a lady who was excellent at knowing the disease of the cows. And she knew really how to explain this disease, you have to cure it this way. And therefore, they decided that it was important to use the video. Then, in the other region, they were actually working on tubers. And there, they thought, for us, all the people that are working with us, they are listening to radio, so we are going to have radio programs. So they decided to do that. Talking about radio programs, I'm also referred this morning about Niger. In Niger, we have done different we have been documenting different good practices. There was one on inventory credit, another one which was about these agriculture input shops, the farmer field schools, how to use the microdoses. And at the end, what we did a radio program for each of them, but telling a story. It was a kind of soap opera. So farmers and researchers were involved and they were telling a story. And so the farmers could recognize themselves in that little story because this was their daily life. So you see, it was using first a written document and then transposing it to the audiences. To go back to Costa Rica, the third pilot area, they were working on different category of rice. And because Costa Rica is a country with a lot of biodiversity, they have different type of rice. And here they said, okay, here we need to document things very clearly because it's changing all the time. And so they decided to have fact sheets. And so that's what they did. They actually documented all their experience and the good practices on paper. So that is when you will become, if you have to think as from the beginning with whom you're going to communicate. If it's a decision maker and he wants to have things quickly in a page or two, then you can decide to have just a fact sheet. A fact sheet which explains, we go to the point immediately. So depending on with whom you're going to share the information, then you decide what will be the most appropriate tool. And whatever you're going to do, you can still use this famous template. So the first thing, can you improve the light of the... Anyway, you have it here. It's a printout. Oh, you do? Okay, good.
No, I'm not.
So, well, they do this, we go back to, anyway, you have it in front of you. So, you start documenting the title. You try to see the type of document, because is it going to be just what I said, a fact sheet? Is it going to be a good practice? Is it an experience? Because you remember this morning I said, a good practice is an practice that has been validated, repeated. So you need to have several experiences. So there is also a way of documenting your experience. And you can use the same template. Or you can write the case study. That is absolutely not a problem. What is important also is to write when you are documenting it. Because things are changing over time. Very often on internet you will find a document, but you don't know when it has been done. So put at least the year. Then here what we have put is that the publisher, to know actually who has been involved in publishing it, and the target audience. And the target audience is quite important to know because it will also see how you're going to write, what is the level of the language, which kind of language you're going to use. The objective, for whom you write this document and what for. So think about that, and this is the very beginning. And then you continue writing where this good practice is being, what is the area that is covered?
I don't know.
Okay, so here we are with the geographical coverage.
If I switch off the light or...
So then we have the summary. The summary could also be an introduction to the context. What is the situation and what is the problem, the issue that was documented, to understand how it has been resolved. But if you remove the light, you will fall asleep.
Yeah, no, I was trying to figure out something with...
This is basically the focus of the theme.
You can turn off and start again. Turn off the computer with data show and try to...
We can stay with us for all sessions, huh?
If I would be good.
With the recruit.
Okay, so summary or introduction about what are we talking about. Then it's important also to mention with whom. Who are the partners? Who are the partners who have been the stakeholders involved in the good practice that you are documenting. And we are trying to also explain what are the different social groups. Because when you document the good practice, what we try to do is make sure that the criteria, you remember this morning there was all these criteria that it should be effective, sustainable, at different levels and all these things. So what is important is that, this is that. you explain who are the different target groups: men, women, elder people, younger people. And when you go down, it's what is the methodology that has been used to work with the people, and to know how long did it take to learn the lessons and to identify the success factors. How have you done that? Was it done on regular visits, or was it done because you organized what we call an after-action review, or it could be a midterm review with the partners going into, is it part of the monitoring process? Because it's very interesting to do this at different periods of a project or an initiative. And how it has been validated. And have the people, the user, the beneficiary, have they been involved in validating that it is really a good practice, it's really, or if it, that the errors that have been made, you found a resolution for them. So it's important to also see how it has been validated. Of course, generally, what you want is to get an impact. So what has been the impact, positive or negative, depending whether it has been a failure or a success, to all the different groups of people, men and women. And you look at what has been the impact at social, environmental, and financial level. When you're documenting it, what you will try to find is if there were innovation, success factors that make this to happen. And then what were the elements that made it successful? If on one side you had the success factors and you have had innovation, what is interesting to know is also what have been the constraints, the difficulties that have been encountered, and what kind of solutions were found to actually resolve them. And then what were the lessons learned? So the lessons learned would be a combination about what has been the success, the innovation, and how the constraints were leveraged. After that, you come into the sustainability, and very often when you have little projects or even bigger projects, things work well until the project lasts. And when it is finished, there is nothing in place for the sustainability, and everything goes down when the project and the money is over. Therefore, if you want this to be really a good practice, it's important to include the sustainability element. What are you building all along the way to make sure that when it is finished, it will continue? It will continue because people would have the capacity to continue, people would get a sense of appropriation, and they see why they should continue doing it. And so they have the capacity, they are convinced that it is, and they have the means to do it. Because sometimes if they don't have the finance to actually do the maintenance, it's going to die. So it's also to make sure that they have the means, the financial means, the resources. So this has to be taken into account. And it's interesting to actually warn also, you know, it was, for example, there were interesting questions this morning saying, but is it really true that you can replicate things in other places? And I said, you know, you need to have the basic conditions that have to be respected, otherwise it's not going to work. So it is interesting to actually take all these things into account. And upscaling, I think it's one of the most difficult things to do, because very often good practices can be done at a small scale, and then when you decided to actually upscale to the whole country or even a region, you have plenty of different things that come on board that you really have to take into consideration and that were not there. Because I'm thinking, for example, in the case of Egypt. In Egypt, we have developed a project that was called VERCOM. It's still called VERCOM. It's Virtual Extension Research Communication Network. So we first did it in one governorate, and it worked quite well. And we got all the elements in place so that we could replicate this project in the country. But this worked only because, number one, the government, the Ministry of Agriculture, thought this is something that we want to continue. And also, because this was ICT related, there was a policy in Egypt is that you could have internet access anywhere in the country just dialing a local. So with just a local phone call, you were connected to internet. So these were, for example, some of the conditions, not all of them, that enabled the project to be upscaled. But also, Egypt had an excellent network of extension officers and researchers. So, you know, these were the key conditions for being able to repeat it, because without that, you wouldn't have been able to upscale it. So you needed to have the political will, you needed to have the infrastructure in place, and you need also to have the conditions to be able to do it. So you see, and the challenges are getting even higher and higher if you want to upscale nationally or regionally. So this has to be taken into consideration. When we conclude, it's nice to actually have testimony of someone who has experienced this good practice and can say something about it. What it has changed for me, having this practice in place. For example, for Warantage, a woman could say, you know, now I no longer depend on my husband to get a credit. Using this type of scheme, I myself can have credit for my own activities. So that's an example. So contact details, because people would like to know who should I contact to be able to do something similar or to adapt it in my country. If there is a URL to have it there. If there are other websites related, because it's important also to relate it to the other partners. And also all the different resources that have been developed, because sometimes you have a training manual, you have a specific methodology, and as I have mentioned to you, you could have a video, a radio program about the same subject. So it is also interesting for people to decide, okay, I prefer to watch a video because maybe in a few minutes I will get a good idea of what it is all about. So that is how the template that I wanted to share with you. And then on the other page is about the metadata. Does anyone knows what is a metadata? No? So metadata is information about the information. So, for example, this is a sheet of paper, and you're going to put it on your website. And you want other people to be able to find it very easily. So it is important that you have what I have explained at the very beginning. It's to give who is the author, the year, who is the publisher, and to give this type of information. It could be the number of pages, and actually all these metadata are being given here. What is also important is that you have keywords, so that if you Google it and you have put these keywords inside your document as metadata, people will find them also easily. And if you have a database, that will enable also to sort things more easily. So these are the few things that I wanted to share with you before we start engaging into the discussion.
Thank you, Sophie. Please, we want to hear from you, right? We want to hear from you, from your experience in documenting good practices, if you have. What worked, what didn't work. So we are very happy to hear from your experience now. Or why did you come for this session, for instance?
Do you have questions about how you want to document yourself what you're doing?
Is that you mean that in the field which are working, this experience with the farmers, with you water users? This kind of experience you need to explain.
Okay. That's what motivates you. Good. Do you have any experience?
Yes, we start already, but sorry for my English, if you can
No, your
explain.
English. No, no,
I will try to do my best because it's in English.
Your English is perfect. You can speak in Arabic and we ask someone to translate for you if someone volunteer to translate.
As for me, you can go on in English.
Because I want to explain some technical
okay,
things.
so please.
In our case, in Algeria, we are the country of arid region. The water is more scarce than before. And we have started that with the farmers that use the program of economic water. In that kind of experience, we started to share and together with the farmers and to improve with these traditional methods, even in the south, because you cannot more invest in traditional agriculture. In this part of the region, first we explain to the farmers which is the objective of this project, the objectives of this what you are doing, and to explain to them. In the first time, the farmers, they don't know what you are going to give them, because they need some materials, they need some drip irrigation, they don't have enough money to get them. In the beginning, just when we explain them the importance of water scarcity, because before they don't pay water, it's for free. And we have to reduce all these water losses. They cannot come easily, because one man, if they don't have pay water, he have to lose it with no problem.
That is to build awareness.
Yes,
you need to build awareness.
And the first one, when we have maybe 6 times to go to them, it is like to make them the responsible of the project, because the institution will go back, we go after the finish, and they have to take this in by themselves in the future.
Yes.
And we have to explain them what is the sprinkler, what is the drip irrigation, how to use this, which is how to measure, and we did this for 2 years in one area. And after that, those farmers were interested. And they started to reduce the loss, they started to use the drip irrigation, they started to use new techniques easily. It's a small scale, not a big scale.
Okay.
But when we follow them after that, we see those people that are taking care of this, what we give them first.
Okay, so and this experience, which is quite a positive
Yes.
one, have you documented it? Have you documented this experience?
What we did at that time, we didn't finish evaluation of it, and after that, we use what is on TCP, the Technical Cooperation Project with FAO, and we improved that valorization. And when we were working in the project, we did some kind of, I will give you some example. What we did is with these farmers, for example. Sorry, just to give you an idea, because when they start the project, first, for example, we have to explain to them it is the basic.
Do you want me to go around?
Yes, no problem. Yeah. Yes, it is a nice kind of experience, and to explain them how to use drip irrigation, but in French.
Only le français.
Yes, and this okay, and how to start with the conseils for irrigation.
Okay.
We go to explain when you give it in Arabic and French language.
So this is what you. So this was.
We start with this.